On the morning of September 6, 1781, 2 battalions of British soldiers landed at the mouth of the Thames River near New London, Connecticut. They were led by the infamous Benedict Arnold, a former American general born and raised just 12 miles north in the town of Norwich. Having defected to the British 1 year earlier, this would be his final act of treason against his homeland. During the Revolution, New London was a vigorously effective privateering port for the colonies. Harassing British supply lines en route to New York, Connecticut privateers captured roughly 500 enemy vessels since the war began. One loyalist newspaper called New London the most detestable nest of pirates on the continent. The region's coastal defenses were commanded by Lieutenant Colonel William Ledyard, a Groton merchant turned revolutionary. With the enemy fleet fast approaching, the fate of his hometown now lay in his hands. Ledyard immediately ordered the alarm to be sounded. 2 cannons fired in succession. Wise to the region's alarm system, Arnold ordered for a 3rd cannon to be fired. While 2 shots meant an attack was imminent, 3 indicated that a friendly vessel was returning to port. This devious act by Arnold caused mass confusion for residents scattered along the river valley. Among the turmoil, Colonel Ledyard sent couriers to muster what militiamen they could. On the west side of the river, Arnold would command a force of 800 men to attack Fort Trumbull, before raiding New London. On the east side of the river, Lieutenant Colonel Eyre led 800 men to seize the American stronghold at Fort Griswold in Groton. With only 23 defenders, the militiamen at Fort Trumbull quickly realized they were heavily outnumbered. They fired 1 volley, destroyed their cannons, and paddled across river to aid in Fort Griswold's defense. Overlooking Long Island Sound, Fort Griswold contained a clever system of trenches, barriers, and artillery batteries. Judging it to be their best defense, Ledyard rallied what few he could find. 160 militiamen were present. While some were privateer crewmen, most were local farmers, inexperienced in battle. Outnumbered 5 to 1, Ledyard was charged with turning this ragtag bunch into a combat unit. As the British approached, a white flag of truce was sent to deliver the terms of battle. Lieutenant Eyre called for the Americans' immediate surrender of Fort Griswold. When Ledyard refused, Eyre warned that once it was seized, no quarter would be given. That is to say, no mercy would be shown, and all of its defenders would be put to death. Despite these threats, Ledyard once again refused to surrender the fort. On the outskirts of New London, Benedict Arnold used a field glass to examine the situation at Groton Heights. Spies had informed him that the fort was still under construction and would be swiftly obtained. Seeing that its fortifications were far more formidable, he hastily sent a messenger to delay the attack, but it was too late. An unrelenting barrage of muskets and grape shot commenced. Some militiamen resorted to tossing cannonballs at the seemingly endless stream of British troops. Lieutenant Eyre himself was shot in the action and carried off the field. Militiamen stubbornly resisted 3 waves of British attacks. British Major William Montgomery eventually pierced the fort's southern wall, suffering heavy casualties in the process. Upon breaching the fort, Montgomery was mortally wounded after being impaled by defender Jordan Freeman, a former slave. Roughly 1/4 of the British force would be killed or wounded before finally flooding into Griswold's interior. Colonel Ledyard ordered his men to cease fire. Seeing that the battle was lost, he offered his sword to a British officer in an act of surrender. Accounts say that the officer then approached Ledyard, accepted his sword, and thrust it into his chest. No quarter was given to the remaining Americans. Of the 160 defenders, 85 were killed, 60 were wounded, some mortally. Before the massacre, only half a dozen had been killed. Across river, a systematic burning of New London began. Local businesses were looted. Ships unable to escape were set ablaze. Its waterfront reduced to rubble. Over 100 families would be left homeless. The Battle of Groton Heights was the Revolution's last major battle in the North. To this day, Benedict Arnold's name remains synonymous with that of treachery. The massacre at Fort Griswold and burning of New London put him in an even more detestable light. Despite his costly victory, the war would soon be coming to an end after George Washington's triumph in Yorktown, Virginia, the following month. In 1826, a monument was erected at Fort Griswold, commemorating those who gave their lives at Groton Heights.